Grab your spears and raise your tomahawks, Seminole fans. You're watching and listening to The Warpath, the weekly collaboration between the Osceola.com and Warchant.com. My name is Nick Carlisle, staff writer for the Osceola. That is Matt Lasser, recruiting writer for Warchant. Welcome to the show. And I will have you notice immediately, in all of its glory, the Panthers getting a 4-3 overtime shootout victory against the Dallas Stars last week. The bet came through, ladies and gentlemen. If you're wondering what that bet may be, Matt and I made a bet last week on the show that whichever team won, the other person would be wearing some memorabilia, some fanatical jerseys or shirts or whatever. Let's go, Cats.
Hide that tag better.
Yeah, a shirt that he's totally not going to return as soon as the show is done. Oh, man. Matt, my Cats may be tied for last in their division right now, but at least we know how to take down perennial playoff teams.
That was a great game, by the way. I was watching in the press box during the game.
Yeah.
It was close, though. You know, the two-star shootout goals went off the posts. Yeah, it wasn't like Bob made an amazing save, just to put that out there.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. Or is there a saying for hockey? That's just how the puck rolls. That's just
Maybe, I don't know.
Just how the puck. I mean, puck luck. Trust me, coming from a team that has won back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, championships.
Oh, you had to throw that one in there.
Yes, of course. Puck luck very much does exist. So we'll take home. Wait, where is it? We'll take home the victory this time around.
There's one more game this year.
There's one more game.
The bet will come up one more time this year.
Yeah, and maybe you shouldn't return that shirt if that's the case, because we're going to go 2-0. Okay.
Look, man, I'll go and buy it again. I don't care.
That exact same shirt. Same shirt.
It was $50, and I had to get it. I had to get
$50.
I had to get them to get it from the back. I looked it up this morning. Was like, oh, okay, it's in stock at Dick's in Tallahassee. I'll go over there real quick. And I think I circled the store like 5 times looking for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't finally ask someone, like, oh, I think it's in the back. So, you know, if you need a Panther shirt and you're in Tallahassee, you have to ask them for it at Dick's. Or,
that
you know, this one will probably
$50.
No, it's not. It's a basic shirt. Honestly, it's kind of a cool shirt. Like, if it was a Stars one, I would love it. Like, it's because it's basic. But, yeah, no, it's a pretty expensive shirt.
We take the dub and we move on. Just like Florida State has been taking some dubs on the recruiting trail. They've also taken a couple of L's on the recruiting trail. Matt, you and I have been begging, pleading, crying, kicking, and screaming. I know, to the heavens for the past couple weeks as recruiting, much like the state of Florida State football in general, has been in a massive state of limbo. Dominoes are starting to fall. We have some entertaining stuff to talk about on today's Warpath, so make sure that you don't go anywhere. But before we get into all of that, I do want to thank Andy Ludicky with My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Warpath. Are you sick of your job? Are you ready to leave the corporate rat race behind? Do you want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Do you have a job and want a side hustle? Andy can help you. He is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner, and he helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, their passions, their financial requirements. His services are 100% free, and he is here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. He loves college football, so talk to him about college football when you call in and talk to Andy Ludicky. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more. You can text or call Andy at 404-973-9901. Thanks again, Andy, for sponsoring the Warpath. Okay, Matt, we got a lot to talk about today, and I'm so excited that we have a lot to talk about today. Where do you want to start? I'm going to pass the baton to you. Decommitments, commitments, kids on other visits, state of recruiting as a whole. We do we know as much as we thought that we knew last week? Have things shifted completely? Where do you want to start?
I don't know what the state of recruiting is. If we're being honest, it's all over the place. So let's start with the decommitments, and we'll start with Hughes because we kind of started talking about that one last week with visits to Nebraska. He flipped to Syracuse this week or a couple days ago. What I didn't realize is I read somewhere that he did visit Syracuse for that UNC win, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised it wasn't Nebraska? Like, I don't think either of us were surprised that he flipped, but I think it was when it was Syracuse.
Yeah, I think that's where the surprises come from for sure. Definitely Nebraska felt very, very good about the visit that he took a couple of weeks ago. So much so that the fact that they felt like they were going to get him back on an official visit eventually. So the fact that Fran Brown was able to dip back again into South Florida and get another South Florida defensive back, I think that speaks a lot to Fran Brown and his recruiting ability. But also, I look, this is a kid that has felt like he's been 1 foot out for a majority of the season. I mean, you get him on an official visit. You don't get him to shut down his recruitment, and not everybody's going to shut down the recruitment. But that's obviously what you would have hoped for somebody that's been committed to the program. I think he was the 4th longest tenured Seminole commitment in this class, something like that,
right?
No, I think it was even earlier than that. He came for a camp. He came for a camp. It might have been for an elite camp in the summer of 2024. And then I remember he committed maybe a week later.
I think it was July 2024.
But it's a long tenure commitment at that point after you go through all those official visits, unless all hell is broken loose, which hell this season might classify as hell breaking loose. If it goes down a negative path the last 4 weeks. I mean, a lot of people have already considered the fact that it's probably gone full hell let loose. But this was a kid that you would have hoped that you would have shut down his recruitment in the summer. You didn't get that. He continued to take visits elsewhere. I'm just surprised that it was Syracuse and not Nebraska, because it felt like Nebraska primarily was where most of that momentum came from. And who knows, maybe it was a little bit of bidding going on. You go to Nebraska, see what they're willing to give you, see, the connections that you have there. Obviously, we talked last show about the connections that he would have had at Nebraska.
Yeah.
And then you go to Syracuse the following week, see what the situation is there. Obviously felt good enough about the Orange to be able to flip his commitment. And it's not like Syracuse is a new player in his commitment, or his recruitment rather. I mean, they were there pretty much.
And they've been there the whole time. Like, they've always been one of the schools pushing for it. Fran Brown does a great job of recruiting South Florida with what Syracuse has, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend Syracuse has the resources of a Florida State and even in Nebraska, because Nebraska's still, even though in my lifetime they haven't really been good, and I don't know, but maybe your lifetime, you're a little older than me, but it's like they're still a top program when it comes to that kind of stuff, just because it's Nebraska. It's the only school in the state, so it's the only school people pay attention to. I've been thinking about it. I think Nebraska fans are too nice.
Too nice?
Are
nice. Are they the Mike Norvell of college football fans?
Dude, they always sell out the stadium. Like, apparently their thing is just, I think Matt Rule went on a rant about it. Like, we can be mean, but it's like, I was very surprised to see Syracuse really pull this off. And then once I found out he visited for that UNC game, it made a little bit more sense. I didn't realize he visited for that UNC game, but it's kind of a weird one. I know he got into it on Twitter with some guys, and I'm going to kind of ignore that, but that's kids being kids, man. It happens.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't want to call it a huge loss for FSU, just because, I think we considered this coming for a long time now. Even though it always felt like he was locked in. I don't remember what our rating was of him when we went through the list, but yeah, I didn't see it coming to Syracuse. It makes sense that with the visit that Fran Brown was able to pull him in. You do have to note that Calvin Russell, his high school teammate down there at Northwestern, is also committed to Syracuse. That is one that seems like is actually going to stick to Syracuse at this point, even though, like, you and me also thought that, kid's probably not going to come to Florida State, but doubt he goes to Syracuse.
Well, I mean, that one might be interesting, because didn't Fran Brown just make changes to his offensive staff? I don't think the wide receivers coach is the wide receivers coach anymore at Syracuse. I'm pretty sure they just had a huge offensive staff overhaul. I could be wrong, but I think that. So, I don't
pay attention to Syracuse that much, for being honest.
That may have something to do with it. That may also change, but no, I'd be interested to go back and see what we had him rated in terms of like a confidence of sticking all the way back at the beginning of the season, which feels like forever ago at this point. I feel like I probably fell somewhere around a 6.
Probably.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it.
Fran Brown does a really good job, man. And even though this season's not going well for them, they did have a lot of guys leave for the NFL. this past season. So it's kind of just a tough year for Syracuse in general. But I think,
you lose your starting quarterback.
Yeah, they're on the right track, man. The way he recruits, they're on the right track to do well in the future.
Yeah, no, I like Fran Brown a lot. And maybe if it were a different year, let's say we were already in 2026 and Mike Norvell was the coach and potentially on his way out, I would be interested.
Then I would look at Fran Brown. I would not hire him after the season.
That would be a really tough sell optically to hire Fran Brown if you fire Mike Norvell at the end of the year.
Unless you could get like Calvin Russell to flip over immediately.
So the other commitments, or rather decommitment this weekend, Tico Brown Jr. Decommitting from Florida State. Not a ton of chatter from him in his camp, at least the entirety of the season. It felt very, very quiet. He came for a couple of games, but that was early on in the season. I got to be honest, I'm not totally surprised to see him leave this class. It doesn't come as a shock to me. And get into that obviously in a little bit, but I'm curious to know your thoughts here. This one didn't surprise me either.
Yeah, I don't think it surprised me. We talked last week about maybe the floodgates starting to open it up. Obviously, the win against Wake Forest helped to board up that leak a little bit, but there's clearly still some leaking, right? We can't sit here and say that Mike Norvell is safe still, right? His seat is still hot. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the only way his seat doesn't stay hot is to win out. And that's entirely possible, but I can't sit here and say that, it's the kid has to look around. Now, he said he was looking at, he has visits set to Georgia Tech, Colorado, Mississippi State. Colorado surprised me a little bit because I'm still in the camp of, I think Deion's going to magically retire at the end of the season. But we're going to kind of have to see how it goes. I'm going to guess Georgia Tech ends up winning out. That's going to be my prediction in this recruitment. That's not off of any intel. That's off of it's an Atlanta kid staying home. Georgia Tech's doing well. Mississippi State wouldn't surprise me as they're doing well. As for Mississippi State, they are actually a good team. They're in a tough conference with the SEC and aren't up to that level yet, but I think they've shown a good improvement overall in their team and that they're actually competing in these games. It's the old Bobby Bowden quote, right? Like you lose big, you lose small, you win big. They're in the lose small category. Maybe sometimes as Florida State fans, we should go back to that quote, but I digress.
Not in year 6. Not in year 6, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it not surprising. We've said for a few weeks that this stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, especially with Tico. I mean, I generally hold the opinion, and most of the time this is proven correct. When you have a prospect that commits on his first visit, and that first visit is the official
it was
visit,
a weird commitment.
I generally speaking, and there are obviously exceptions to the rule, I generally speaking do not have a favorable outlook on where that commitment is going to go or where that commitment is going to end. Generally speaking, and I'd say majority of the time, that prospect decommits. I just don't feel like there is enough of a connection that can be made on that first official visit, especially when the conversations around that official visit typically talk about committing, and what is talked about when you're committing, fit, scheme, NIL. Not much about the relationships of the staff. You don't have enough time to build relationships with the staff. And even when he committed, Matt, it was a little bit awkward. We found out that he had committed before he announced by a couple of days. Somebody told us that he had committed, and there was
a recruit did in his interview, and we had to cut it out. We won't say who, but that was the funny part of it.
And there was chatter about. So we were told that he had committed, yet there was chatter about him potentially taking a visit to Tennessee, Texas, I think it was Tennessee. I think
you're right. It was Tennessee.
And there was a kind of a will he, won't he in terms of, is he going to take this visit or not? But you told the staff that you committed during your official visit, and now you're already immediately thinking about taking a visit somewhere else. So are you committed or are you not committed? And obviously Mike Norvell and his staff are not ones to completely slam the door like some other programs and say, if you're committed, we don't want you to take you visit somewhere else. But that kind of like back and forth, will he, won't he, right as soon as he committed, that was a little bit awkward. And I wonder if there was maybe some shaky footing, kind of that continued from then onward. Not from that incident specifically, but that would not surprise me if that kind of left both sides kind of a little bit unsure as things progressed. And as I started this whole thing with, if you're committing on your first visit and it's an official visit, I have doubts about how much of a connection you have to the program, and typically that speaks to other factors involved in your recruitment. So
let's go to the positive stuff now. Let's go to commitments. Let's go to commitments. And hey, 2 out of the 3, if you listen to the Warpath, except maybe a little bit of last week with Chris Carbon, but 2 out of the 3 we felt good about for weeks. So good on us. Toot our horns a little bit.
Well, yeah, I still think we felt good about Chris Carbon.
It was just it shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
It did shift a little bit last week because he said Georgia Tech was trending. That was the reason why. And even so, I guess we'll start with Chris Carbon. Chris Carbon commits to Florida State the morning after the big win over Wake Forest, 42-7 win over Wake Forest. I talked to him right after he announced the commitment. He said he called the coaches that morning, and that's when he did it. This one, I wonder, because Auburn was in this too, I wonder how much Hugh Freeze getting fired really pushed this over the edge, right? Because it felt like right after he got fired is when the commitment dropped. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But in general, he told me because he said, like I just said, he said that Georgia Tech was trending again last week to, I believe, I forget who it was, but it was someone, Nationals rivals. And he said, no, mainly it was just the coaches, like the coaches coming and being super consistent and always being there. And they T-Knight went to see him over the bye week and watch his game, which was big for him. And just that constant communication was huge when it came to this recruitment. Yeah, I think this is a good get. This is one that we saw after Florida State missed on a few guys over the summer, was an offer in July right after missing on some guys, and it clearly became the top of their board pretty quickly, right? It was very clear they were pushing for him. He came and visited the first chance he got after a dead period for the Alabama game, and then came back again for an official visit for the Pitt game. Obviously, then the program was up in the air after the Pitt loss and the Stanford loss. You win a game, Hugh Freeze gets fired. I think Georgia Tech was kind of slow rolling the recruitment a little bit here on the second go around. And Florida State was the one pushing the most and got the win. So
yeah, well, there's that too. I do think you're right. I do think that Auburn firing Hugh Freeze had something to do with it. I would imagine that late Saturday night they made that decision. Word more than likely got out Sunday morning, just timetable wise, that the firing was coming. I do think that had a play in it, but I do think that Florida State was the leader, even though Georgia Tech ended up trending towards the end there a little bit. That might have been word from his camp trying to get both sides into a battle of some sort. Obviously, you know that Florida State covets him. You know they're going to pay for him. They don't really have anybody else edge rusher wise. Obviously, there's money in the coffers there for that position. So it wouldn't be surprising if that's the case. But obviously, this is a prospect that after a couple of weeks watching more of his film, we're happy that he has jumped into the fold. He's a
and to get that first prospect. Edge rusher too is big.
Yeah, and he is going to play probably a jack role, I would have to imagine. So that is something that you have been searching for the entire cycle. You've finally been able to get one. You probably need to get two. There's obviously a couple more guys that are still left out there uncommitted.
You could call Franklin Whitley that second, but that's more of a project.
You're gonna want a 6'7", 290. How heavy is he? He's like 200 and
he's a big guy, man.
He's a big guy.
We'll transition to that. I was very surprised when that one came out on Tuesday because this was one where I honestly thought it was going to go till signing day just because it was a late recruitment. I think this is his first year playing football. So again, like we said, a project recruit, and that's fine to have a couple of those. There's already a couple of those in this class, but he was getting recruited by Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, and he still had a lot of official visits left on the schedule or on the calendar prior to making this commitment. So it was kind of cool to see Florida State lock this one up.
Yeah, especially because Florida State was his first official visit. And typically,
that doesn't happen a lot.
Especially with new recruitments, Typically, the first official visit sets the pace, but then you have somebody later down the line that really hits it out of the park. Obviously, exceptions to the rule. Franklin Whitley being the exception to the rule. This guy is a take in the sense that there are just size and length that you are not going to be able to teach, and you're okay taking a flyer on a kid like this, being able to develop him, get him to add a little bit more weight, have him more comfortable playing with that weight, and being able to see what happens. Length and strength and height and all those other things, and having watched a little bit of his film, I think one of the first 3 clips that you see, he does have a decent ability to bend for a big guy too. I think there's one where he actually swims under the left guard or the right guard in one of those clips, and he does have the ability to bend. A little bit raw of a prospect. That's obviously expected. But again, you have the immeasurables and the intangibles, or not the intangible. I think I said it right the first time. The immeasurables. You have the measurables, 6'6", huge body, huge reach. You're more than happy with that. And this was a head-to-head victory for Florida State in the sense that, hey, you're getting your recruitment is blowing up in the summer, and your film is being evaluated by the likes of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, some of the other programs that were getting involved as well. This kid was a take at those schools. It's not like you offer them as a junior, then the senior film doesn't look as great, and Florida State just comes in and takes them right now. He was wanted by other programs, which I think is impressive.
Yeah. Hey, how tall is Daryl Jackson?
6'6".
So if you put some muscle on this kid and beef him up even more, you're looking at a freaks list again, right? That's what you're looking at. That's what it could develop into. I think he's listed as an edge, but like that big a size, you put him inside, like you got something good cooking.
No, absolutely. I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
obviously
that was a good way. Like I was very surprised to see that.
The pessimists will go and tell you, well, this coaching staff may not be here to actually develop him and see him through. But irregardless of that, this is a kid that you like a lot, which you see you like the potential of what he can be. And he could be potentially a game record down the line, which is really exciting. And then the final commitment, one that we've been talking about happening pretty much since the summer. It just felt like eventually this one was going to cash in, even more so when Sam Pittman got fired. But Dalen Green committing to Florida State, flipping from Arkansas. Good for Dalen. I think you and I, the primary thing coming from both of us here is good for Dalen. I mean, the kid is a local kid, grew up watching Florida State. It means a lot to him. And this is probably one that you don't have to worry about him going somewhere else unless the coaching chain really just rocks him again. But I feel like for Dalen, this is great for him personally, as obviously you and I have dealt with him for a while.
Yeah, a good kid. Again, really happy for him that he gets to play at Florida State. Even if the only way I could see him not sticking to this, even with the coaching change, is if the new coaching staff came in and said they didn't want him anymore, or they wanted to drop him. That would be the only scenario I see. Other than that, I think he's going to stay no matter what. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of role he develops into, because his size is kind of in between stuff, right? Like, yeah, he's a little too big to be a safety. He's kind of too small to be a linebacker currently. I think they'll beef him up and try to put him in that linebacker spot. But it's
well, he's only 17. He's only 17, I think. He's on the younger side.
Yeah, so you can beef him up pretty easily and put him in a linebacker spot. Again, the biggest thing, he came for a practice a few weeks ago, and then he took a visit that weekend, and then he took the official visit. Like, this one was in the bag for a while now, a few weeks, I would say. I don't know if he officially committed to the staff or not in those few weeks, but like it was, from what I had heard, it was pretty close to being done, or like pretty much done weeks ago. And hopefully you guys read in between the lines, because I was trying to tiptoe around that for a few weeks, and Nick knew that as well. So it was, it's good to see this one come to fruition. The biggest thing is very happy for Dalen. Grew up a Seminole fan, always really wanted to be a Seminole, and now it's finally happening.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where he plays as well, because I think 247 has him as safety, or does On 3 have him as a safety? One of those.
We have him as a safety, but it's always been recruited as a linebacker.
Right, and I think when you look at his tape, I mean, the thing that immediately jumps out at you is his ability, hard hitting, explosive. Yep, and that's something that I think is really, not to say that it's a trait and an attribute that's the primary thing that Tony White and Papuchas look for with the linebackers, but I think overall physicality is something that White trends to, and Dalen Green is extremely physical. And I do think that with a little bit more time, a little bit older, as long as he's able to play with that same explosiveness that he has with more weight than he does now, his ability to be a heat-seeking missile, go sideline to sideline, and be able to really lay the wood on whoever's coming into that second level, that is obviously something that you really like to see. Exactly. He plays with no fear, is out to headhunt, and that's something that I think specifically Tony White likes when he's recruiting his defensive players. It's the physicality and the versatility. Those are the two things that I think they really hone in on.
Yeah, and I also like people are hung up on like all these kids are 3 stars and stuff. I think with Tony White's system specifically, this is a hard system to recruit for, especially on the defensive line. Terrence Knighton even said that in his introductory press conference months ago when he got hired. So I think when you're looking at this part, you need to realize that getting their guys that they want is better than the star ranking, right? Like they could play above their star ranking in the right system, and this could be that right system. And that's for all these guys across the board when it comes to this deep recruiting for this defense, because it's just hard to, it's very specific. So I think in general we got to step off of the 3-star U stuff and realize that if these kids fit the system well, that's better than the star ranking.
Evaluations over everything, my friend. I think that is something that can be said, especially when you take a look at some of those higher caliber talent that are at Florida State now that were recruited in previous classes. I mean, Jabril Rawls was a 3-star, and he is potentially your best defensive back on the entire team right now.
He's been fun to watch this year.
He's been really fun to watch.
So much fun to watch.
And you have, I mean, that gigantic class with all those 4-star and 5-star prospects, Lester, Knight, Jamari Howard, Kai Bates. Shamar No has already jumped all of those guys in terms of coming in on the field. So, and that's not to say that they won't ever see the field or that they're not capable of seeing the field. Obviously, there's more that goes into it, like maturity, retenal of information, like some of the other things that you see off the football field that matter and getting on the football field that aren't necessarily contributed to the star ranking. So you have guys like Jabril that surprise you. That's a 3-star prospect. And you also do see guys like Shamar No, who are incredibly talented and do the right things really early, are able to jump on the depth chart or jump you on the depth chart. And it's not always about star ranking. Sometimes it really is. It matters about what matters is what you do when you get here. So not deterred by the 3-star ranking at all. It's always going to be a narrative, I think, especially as long as this coaching staff is
especially
retained.
with it's Mike that's the message throughout Mike Norvell's tenure is that he can't recruit. So that's what's always people are going to go to.
Well, and it really is, and I guess maybe we can phase into this now. It really is the lack of ability to get the big one or hang on to the big one. And I think right now Florida State is really, really in a dogfight with Ohio State for Jay Timonss. I think that is a very serious threat. If you ask me today, I think he flips to Ohio State. This is typically not a recruitment that Mike has shown the ability to win. Not only that, this is a recruitment that Florida State was late on. They only offered him during that summer elite camp, as you know.
Ohio State was later, though.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, it's not like this was a 2 to 3 year recruitment that, that Ohio State is just going to run into and steal. No, this was a later recruitment naturally. Yes, Timonss has Florida State legacy ties here, but the product on the field has not been great. There is the looming question of whether or not this coaching staff is going to stay here. And generally speaking, it's very hard to say no to the national champions who are really, really coming strong for Jay Timonss. Well, we interrupt your current programming to bring you Matt Lasser and Nick Carlisle about 30 minutes into the future. As we just wrapped recording the Warpath roughly 30 minutes ago. And before we could even sit down for lunch, ladies and gentlemen, something that we talked about earlier in the show, or this segment is going to be placed in right in the middle of when we're talking about Jay Timonss and the potential of him flipping to Ohio State. Well, that domino has already fallen, Matt Lasser, as Jay Timonss has officially flipped his commitment from Florida State to Ohio State.
I even joked that it was about to come. Like I even joked, like, oh yeah, what if this happened like right after we record, and that guess.
And sure enough, the foresight came through, and he did flip his commitment from Florida State to Ohio State, as we both felt that it was more than likely that he would at this point, given the information that we had in front of us. What is your immediate reaction to Timonss officially flipping to Ohio State?
Yeah, I would just say not surprised. Like, it doesn't jump off to me like, oh, wow. Like, it just kind of, it made sense, right, man? Like, again, we've talked about this at length. Like, Ohio State, Florida State can't compete with Ohio State right now. That's the truth of it. Like, and it's nothing against Florida State, but it's the number one program in the country with a good future ahead of him because it's Ohio State versus your coach is on the hot seat and likely has to win out to keep his job. So it's hard to stay committed to that, especially when you have the number one team in the country, the number one program in the country by far right now, call it. Like, that's hard to pass up. You know, it's as soon as we always said, you know, not to be worried about Jay Timonss until he starts taking visits, and he did start taking visits. And like when he first got the Ohio State offer, we weren't worried. We were like, all right, but again, this was when FSU hadn't lost a game
3-0. Yeah,
it was 3-0, and things looked good. If that kept continuing, I wouldn't have thought this would happen, but it doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think it surprises either of us. I was talking with Michael earlier this week when he had just talked to Timonss. We watched the Cowboys game at Corner Pocket, and I was like, oh, what did he say? And he was like, yeah, you know, he says like he's pretty real about it. Like he goes like, yeah, my feeling is he's going to flip. And I go, why wouldn't he? Like, if you're in that spot, why wouldn't you? I would flip too if I were him.
And now this makes two of Florida State's blue chip, blue chip in terms of on three. I'm not sure about the composite rankings, but Jay Timonss definitely considered a composite 4-star, 5-star on three services. But now you're down two of your cornerstone defensive back recruitments or commitments rather in this class. Matt Lasser, where does Florida State now start looking to fill that the empty spots in this defensive back class?
Yeah, I really don't know. Maybe you try to push for a CJ Bronow, but again, he's also actually interesting part with CJ Bronow is he's a DB or a quarterback and who's also looking at Ohio State as another option now that Billy Napier's gone. So I wonder how this affects those dominoes. If there's still another spot in that class. Now, obviously, both are top players, and you can probably make room for him either way, I would think. But that's one you think of, because Florida State was involved there. I don't think they're going to circle back on Caden Hall. I think that door is closed from talking to some people close to that recruitment. So it's kind of going to be interesting. I think there's a better chance here you see some offers come out in the next few days, like a Tim's, because I don't think Tim's they offered him. He was here over the weekend against Wake Forest.
My mistake. You're right. He hasn't been offered yet.
So maybe that's an offer that comes in here in the next few hours, in the next few days. Just because you just got him on campus, and that seems like low-hanging fruit to me. So it's going to be kind of interesting. It's something that you're going to have to watch. But yeah, this we did say last week. We did say the floodgates are close to opening, and here they come, man. I thought a win would help it out a little bit, but it's as soon as they got the 3 commitments, they got the 3 decommitments as well. The ebbs and flows of this cycle right now.
Well, I mean, if you want to find a positive way to spin it before we wrap up this quick update here, I mean, you're getting guys in at positions of need, right? You're trading some of those positions at a position group that you're strong with, and bringing in some guys that you do need. You do need defensive linemen. You do need guys in the trenches. I think that you see that on the football field right now. I mean, Florida State would make a fantastic 7v7 team, but inside the trenches, that's where the recruiting has really lacked. And granted, it's hard to get fired up about some of these 3-stars. We think we talk about that a little bit later in the show as in retrospect to where this segment is going to be implemented, but it's not making an excuse for losing a couple of defensive back commitments that you valued very heavily, more so Timonss than Tadarius Hughes. But
yeah, and I know you are very high on Timonss. Like, you think Timonss is the best commit in the class, and I don't think you think it's close.
No, I don't. I mean, Chuck is a really, really good defensive back. I was extremely impressed with what I saw with Timonss, and I think this is a huge loss for Florida State. As I said, talking about Timonss, prior to this, this is yet another recruitment that Mike Norvell has failed to win in the closing stages. And I don't want to make that sound like I'm dogging on Norvell, because I think, as you pointed out at the very beginning of this, why wouldn't you flip to Ohio State in this circumstance, right?
There's no reason not to.
There's no reason not to. But even if there were reasons not to. Reasons being, he was born in Tallahassee. His father went here. He's very familiar with the program. You have heartstrings attached. This was just the kind of battle that it felt like Florida State always loses. Specifically, Norvell and his staff always loses. And I think why maybe perhaps it's so jarring in that sense is that Surtain is your best recruiter on your staff. And not even him and his NFL prowess and his ability to develop defensive backs was really able to keep Timonss in the fold here. But again, very, very slim in terms of finding reasons why you would stay at Florida State at this point. Even if, and going back into the grand picture, the big scheme of things, yes, you are bringing in commitments at positions of need and losing commitments at positions that you're really strong in on the roster right now. Doesn't excuse losing some of these kids. An unfortunate loss for Florida State on the recruiting trail. Anything else to add before we go back to the show?
Yeah, I think this is another thing. We just have to keep watching, man. Like, it's going to be very interesting. Like we said last week, the floodgates were going to open eventually. It's one of those things where it all seems good until it's not, right? Everyone's going to say the right things until we get to the end of it.
Well, it's also decommitment season. I mean, November is notoriously volatile. Yeah,
and look at Hayes Fawcett's Twitter right now. There was like 5 decommitments last night in general nationally. Like, this is happening every day, multiple times a day this time of year. It's also the time of year where other teams are going to bring in the offer you can't refuse time. Like, that's what happens this time of year as we get closer to signing day. Now, not just honest. So do you think Florida State could get back in this one? I don't really want to open that door, but I don't No. You think even if they win out and then make a bigger offer?
No. No. Frankly, no.
Not open the door? Not open the door.
No,
okay.
I wouldn't even open the door. I mean, again, if we want to stay consistent on this.
Time flipping.
If we want to be consistent on this too, it's like, what reason would he have to come back? Your coach is still going to be on the hot seat next year, even if Mike Norvell does survive the season. I mean, you're going to get a decision either way at the end of the season from this administration. We felt very much so that, especially in earlier episodes of the Warpath, we felt very much so that his commitment was to Mike Norvell and Patrick Surtain and not so much to the university.
Because when I talked to him before the visit, he said, I'm committed to the staff.
Yeah. So, I mean, the looming cloud of the staff is still there, Matt Lasser. And hey, look, you're going to be playing for something bigger than yourself at Ohio State. You're playing for the current #1 team in the country and defending national champion with the current roster that might be better this year than last year. You're not going to have to worry about coaching instability. You're not going to have to worry about playing time.
It goes to what we just said. There's no reason for him not to flip to Ohio State. If I were in the kid's shoes, I would do the same exact thing. I'm not it makes sense.
Well, right? And even to play devil's advocate, even if you want to play devil's advocate and say, okay, Florida State, let's throw and overpay for Jay Timonss from an NIL perspective. I don't know that Florida State could even do that right now, especially with the condition that they have right now in terms of the coaching staff, especially with what they have available in the Battle's End and NIL perspective, including what they're going to need to be able to spend in the transfer portal. Not only whether turns into a transfer class or that turns into another transfer portal class that Mike Norvell is going to have to build a roster from. I just don't know that they can go all in with some prospects right now, especially with 25 other kids. I think it's 25 now after this decommitment, Matt. We're back down at 25. You still have 25 kids on board. It's not like last year where you had 12 or 13 kids and you had money left to burn to get some guys that you really, really wanted, like Shamar Arno and Usman Kroma. You have a lot of kids on board. Now, granted, they may not be money guzzlers, but you still do have some guys that you're paying a lot of money for. And transactionally, I'm just not sure that even if you threw money at Timonss like that, you'd be able to get him back, among the other reasons that we spoke about. Now, back to your regularly scheduled Warpath programming.
I will say I don't think LeBron James was on the sideline. Remember, he told me before the visit that, that LeBron James could do some convincing. But I think that Ohio State left an impression here, and this is a dogfight. We're going to see, that's going to be when we recorded this early because I'm going up to Clemson, but watch him flip after we talk about this.
Do you agree, though? Do you feel like this is the type of recruitment that Mike Norvell just doesn't win? Like this?
No,
this is
typically yes.
The stereotypical
now,
top
the difference
recruit flips at the end of the cycle.
But the difference is you have a little bit more connections here with him being a legacy kid. I think that helps. That definitely does help because he was born in Tallahassee, not raised, but he was born in Tallahassee. And like all that stuff helps. That's one that we haven't seen with. We've seen the dream school fan scenario, but this one is a little bit deeper than that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Karan Maycock did visit Texas. Linebacker's position that specifically Texas has had trouble with this cycle. This feels like maybe something that's a little bit more attainable.
They missed on Braden Rouse and Braylon Hodge. In the class, they have Tyler Atkinson, who's really good from Georgia, Kosi Okpala, and Johnny Nason. And they're trying to get one more spot in. And it looks like, in my opinion, I think if they push for Karan Maycock with everything going on at Florida State, you can probably get him. That's the feeling. But again, if Florida State can save themselves with a win against Clemson, this is what I truly do think the kid likes FSU, and he's from Florida, and like that helps. But when Texas comes calling, do they come calling? And we know that that's the way. That's what happens when you're in battles with top programs like this. Is it's going to be hard to number one outbid them. It's going to be hard to out recruit. Now their new facility, he should come and see the new facility too, because it's got to be on par, if not better than Texas is now. So, but it's I think if Texas pushes here, they can get him.
No, you need to get him back on campus for the Virginia Tech game. If you can survive to Virginia Tech, I think that you have a good chance of keeping them. And I think that goes for most of the recruits. You get these guys on campus for a Virginia Tech game, especially after. And stay with me here. I know this is a long shot. Let's say you go and beat Clemson. Do whatever. Ring the bell. Pull out hair, blood sacrifice, whatever you need to do to beat Clemson. Let's say that it happens, right? You beat Clemson, you're on a 2-game winning streak. You get your commitments back for that game against Virginia Tech. You have a much, much better chance of holding on to them. And I think the season outlook just changes completely with the victory against Clemson anyway.
Even though Clemson's down this year, I still think it means the same. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, the logos matter. The logos matter.
In Death Valley at night, I don't care how bad Clemson is. That's still going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
But it's and also like it goes back to what I said a few weeks ago before the Stanford loss with, if Mike Norvell having a chance to being able to recruit himself out of this with Billy Napier getting fired. With all the coaching changes going around, number one, I think we're going to see how transactional recruiting really is. Because we're going to see if these kids stick. Like, I think that's a big thing. Like, this is a big cycle for that with the way the coaches being fired.
That's a huge narrative this cycle. Yeah.
You're going to, and that's not something people are talking about, but like, you're going to see how transactional it really is with kids sticking without super big prior relationships. But with that being said,
I think before you go on that thought, I think specifically that hurts Florida State too, because I do think that as much bluster and as much smoke and mirrors as you want to say about how close the teams are and how much they want to play for Mike Norvell, I feel like with how heavy you have gone into the transfer portal, this is probably one of the more transactional rosters in the country, I would argue. So I think that if we're talking about that as a narrative in terms of we're going to see how much money pays with everything that's going on this offseason, I think that specifically hurts Florida State and its recruiting. Now, that could go any number of which ways. It could be that, with the House settlement that happened earlier this year, that maybe Florida State can put up a little bit more of a fight. You have a little bit more money to spend, but on the other side of the coin, you're back up against it, Matt, in terms of donations and contributions in the NIL because of the product that's been on the football field. So this is a very, very, very knife edge situation here.
So on the flip side of that, though, if this staff saves their jobs, wins out, has momentum going into the offseason, maybe can get more fundraising by saving money by not buying out. Who knows? Like, I think they have enough money. I think they could do it if they wanted to right now, in my opinion. That's not off of anything I know. I just think there's always money and that can be found. But it's oh, that's true. That is a good point. But it's if you can keep your jobs, there are so many recruiting classes up in the air right now.
Yeah.
It goes back to the Florida conversation I said before the Stanford game, before the season went completely sideways. you could jump back in some of these. That's not now. This is an overly optimistic view, and I completely understand that. I'm just saying it's possible, like because look at Florida last year as the best example. Billy Napier won a bunch of games to end the year. Everyone's excited, and they flip a bunch of people right at the end there. That could happen if this staff keeps their jobs with how many recruiting classes are up in the air with no coaches right now.
I don't think this coaching staff is good enough at recruiting to be able to do that, though. I mean,
like I said, it's an optimistic,
it's overly
view.
optimistic, and I'm responding with the negativity, the negativism. I'm responding with the negativity. I don't know that this coaching staff would be able to do it. I think Billy Napier was a much better recruit than Mike Norvell ever was.
That's his brand. That's what he is.
That's his brand. As much as like the heart and the football fan in me wants to believe that they could be able to do that, I just don't. And it goes back even further. If you want to go back to the conversation that we had last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, how does a new transfer portal wade into that? Does late signing become something that you need to consider as well? And then that too, combined with the fact that something that you mentioned earlier, the transactional nature of college football today, do those things marry together to make a F5 tornado in terms of recruiting chaos over the next 2 months?
I think it's going to be chaotic no matter what.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun thing to cover.
There was
EJ White?
Yeah, I think so. And then there was a couple of official visitors that we have left to talk about from this past weekend. But what's up with EJ? This was a note that you added.
Yeah, he talked to Marcus Benjamin with On 3, our South Florida guy, regionally, I guess is the best way. I don't know what his exact title is, but that's what it is. He talked to him, and he said NC State is still on the phone, basically still in contact. That was his first offer. It always has been, though. Like, NC State has always been there. This becomes a headline now because of the way the season's going. But it's just interesting to see. I still think this is someone who loved Gus Miles on at UCF. Like, UCF was a real contender in this recruitment until Gus and Tim Harris and those guys came to Florida State this offseason. And that kind of locked up EJ White. Like, that EJ White has even gone on record and said that Gus Malzahn's his favorite coach. So as long as that staff is here, I'm not super worried. And until he takes a visit. But it is interesting to hear, and I'm not surprised they're still in contact. Everyone's still in contact with somebody. So it's just something to note and to keep an eye on. Another one until they visit, not worried about it. And if this staff is here, EJ will be in this class.
Yeah. And then Devin Carter was at the game. Obviously, he spoke to, I believe, either you or Michael Langston about it.
He spoke to Michael. I talked to Dexter on the side for a little bit.
You talk about teams still everybody's still hearing from somebody. I mean, obviously, Devin Carter is a tremendously talented prospect. He's still hearing from a couple of programs. You'll have to
Oklahoma, Mississippi State.
Yep, Mississippi
Who's
State
trying to get in this,
swinging some weight around over there.
They're trying to
Starkville.
Stark Vegas.
Stark Vegas. They're throwing their chips. They're pushing their chips into the table, going all in.
He's still locked in, is what he said, and he'll be back for the Virginia Tech game. So that's another one where, if we're rating,
I'm not worried about him at all.
We're not worried. No, not right now. Not unless the staff gets fired, and that is a complete shake.
Yep. Yeah, if the staff gets fired, then and that goes for every recruit that's still committed to the program. If the staff gets fired, then every prior information,
everything's on the table.
You throw it out the window. Yeah, everything's on the table. But as long as the staff is here, I'm not worried about Devin Carter. Got to refine our place here a little bit. But before we do that,
sorry.
Yeah, God, interrupting the ad break. It's because you haven't shaven. It's because you haven't shaven recently, Matt. You need to get clean shaven.
That's an A+.
Dollar Shave Club, sponsor of the Warpath. When you rep your team, don't stop at just the jersey. Dollar Shave Club's collegiate razor handles combine grooming with glory, letting students, grads, fans, and even Warpath recruiting gurus like Matt Lasser show their school spirit in style. From the sink to the stadium, shave with school pride. Visit Dollar Shave Club to grab your college handle today. Go Noles, says the family at Dollar Shave Club. Thank you so much for sponsoring the Warpath. Transitions being what they are, I would love to just be able to scream, "Yay, sausage!" And have that be the train. Like, that is the money. That is the transition gold. It is. It's fantastic. It just feels like a breath of fresh air whenever Jeff screams that into the microphone on Tuesdays at 1:00. It just feels right. I would love to be able to have that. The ability to just scream "Yay, sausage!" It just on. And Jeff is a masterclass. Obviously,
he is true professional.
True professional in every way. Yay, sausage! Yay, shaving!
Yay,
shaving! Yay, official visitors! How about that? Yay, official visitors! What about
Which one
Fat
you want
Boy
to start
again?
with?
Let's go Fat Boy. I'm feeling fat today.
Feeling fat. So I think this is trending to Florida State. I thought that going into the visit as well. And I know we went over that too, but I felt good about this one going into the official visit. Hugh Freeze getting fired again helps because he was supposed to visit Auburn and make his decision after that. But he's still going to visit Wisconsin this weekend on an official visit. That's an interesting one. We'll kind of see. They've supported their coach, and it doesn't look like they're going to fire Luke Fickell. But I really do think, like Steve Wiltfong also put in a pick after the visit, I think Florida State eventually is going to win out in this one. I really like where they stand going out. He even said in the interview after the visit that they have a high chance of flipping him. I honestly forget he's committed to FIU. Because I was like, oh, you have a good chance of flipping him, and I was like, flipping. I was like, oh yeah, he's committed to FIU. But it's I think Florida State will win out in this one. It's closer to home than Wisconsin. He fits the scheme well as a speedster. I like where FSU stands coming out of the visit, going into the Wisconsin visit.
Yeah, so Wisconsin, and then he have another visit planned. I thought there was two of them, or is it just
the Wisconsin
Auburn visit?
It was Auburn.
It was Auburn. Okay, that makes
sense.
And
he said, he said he didn't know what was going on there when we talked to him, which makes sense. It was literally an hour or two after Hugh Freeze got fired when we talked to him. And he said he didn't see that coming. So it's I think this is going to come down to Florida State and Wisconsin, and I think Florida State's going to win out.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. And then DeMond Lewis, obviously Florida State getting a couple of defensive linemen over the weekend. Nebraska was a program that was trending a little bit before his official visit this weekend. Was Florida State, Matt, able to have a good enough weekend to be able to reinsert themselves and gain control back of this recruitment?
Yeah, he said top 3. I think they definitely made a move, but when a kid says top 3 instead of like, oh yeah, they're top, they're all like it's kind of interesting to me because if they just say top 3, that means FSU's probably not number 1, right? Would you agree with that? If that's the first thing off the dome, he is still going to visit LSU for the Arkansas game, which is interesting. I'm not really worried about that because LSU doesn't have a coaching staff currently, so it's maybe he's taking the visit to get a free game. I don't really know how serious that is. We'll kind of see how it is down the line. Again, that goes back to the nature of transactional. Like, you don't know, like their NIL collective could still be offering him, even though there's no true staff in place. Like that could be a factor, and that's what we're going to see with this. They do. LSU does have does have a commitment after Brian Kelly got fired, which is really funny. But it's
I love. It's like, oh, you fired Brian? You fired Brian Kelly? Sign me up. Let me in there. Get him out. Get him out.
That goes to show, dude, with LSU, this is why LSU is such a good job. Is I think they're going to retain most of their class with the new coach just because every Louisiana kid's dream is to play for LSU no matter what. Like, that is like ingrained in them since they are born. So that goes to show why that LSU job is the best job on the market right now, in my opinion. Florida is second, but it's LSU is up there. But yeah, going back to DeMond Lewis, what was kind of cool is his brother plays for the Panthers. They watched that game while on the visit with Fitz making the game-winning field goal. He was wearing a Carolina Panthers beanie when he walked out of the new facility. Was it the new Dunlap facility? Is that the name of it technically?
I think so, yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, did they say anything about it was the FSU alum who made the kick? And they were like, yep. Yeah, we were talking about that all last night. So they use that to their advantage too. This is one I kind of have to keep seeing how it plays out. Like, he's a pretty quiet kid. It could end up being like Franklin Whitley, where it pops out of nowhere and we're a little surprised. I just don't. I would still say it's a Florida State Nebraska battle right now. I don't think there's a clear winner. He said a bunch of other teams were pushing too. I think Texas was in there, NC State. So I think this one could go anywhere. But it was good to get him on campus. Good to get him to see it. He likes the coaching staff. He gets along with T-Knight, Mike Norvell well. We just kind of have to keep seeing how this plays out leading up to signing day. He did say the decision will come closer to them.
And you do have a couple of guys that you're still in the mix for. You're still in the mix for Cameron Wilson. You're still in the mix for the USF kid, Jamin Pickney. You're still in the mix for some of the other guys that you're going to have coming in for the Virginia Tech game. So that's very much a wait or see thing. I think that's also probably an evaluation standpoint from Florida State's side of things, because you do have all these kids coming in on official visits to where you're going to get to the chance to evaluate them in person. And because don't get it twisted, this staff does evaluate kids even when they're on their official visit. How do they talk with their family? How do they react to coaching? How do they react to the culture? So they're evaluating each other. It's all an evaluation. So obviously Demond Lewis is somebody that you're gonna have to keep tabs on, but there are a couple of other guys that I think Florida State needs to see first before any decision made, or maybe he commits tomorrow. Who knows? It doesn't feel like it's trending that way.
No, it does not.
Where else, Matt Lasser? I think we've covered pretty much.
Did we get everything? There we go.
I think we got everything.
Besides one note, and I'll say basketball signing day. I kind of snuck up on everyone. I don't think anyone. I didn't realize that basketball had a different early signing period, but it makes sense. Their early signing period starts this Wednesday, November 12th, and goes until the 19th. All three of your basketball commitments. Jason Lopez is a basketball commitment, but I don't think he's going to sign. He's a football scholarship, right? When it's a dual sport athlete, football takes the scholarship, which means it's also the NIL and the rev share, which means I believe, I haven't checked this, but from my assumption and just, covering this and being in it, I believe he would have to sign during the football period, not the basketball period, just due to that. It would be an interesting fold if he could sign the basketball period and lock this up, right? That would be very interesting. But this is just from my understanding right now, this is for the three basketball only guys and Colin Paul, Brandon Bass Jr., and Marcus Ponder, Baby Shaq. So and they are all expected to sign on that first day, November 12th. I am working on something. I'm working on a signing day special video. I interviewed Joe Tipton right before I came on here for that. I'm going to try to get Jamie Shaw. We're going to get our own Irish O'Fell on here to compare recruiting classes from the Ham era, because I don't know when the last time Florida State had this good of a recruiting class, like at least in recent
probably memory. The Dwayne Bacon, Malik Beasley class.
Yeah, and that's insane.
So
like this is
2016, 2015,
so 10 years ago. So 10 years ago was the last time, and so it's exciting. I'm working on a bunch of stuff to try to get this to be a cool basketball signing day special. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited for this class to get signed because everyone. So in recruiting, everyone has the football mindset of seeing everyone flip flop and decommit and all that stuff. That's not the way basketball works as much. Most of the times, a kid can decommit. But most of the time, you're not seeing kids flip-flop all over the place. Like, they stick more often than not. And it's more consistent that way. So, all are expected to sign on Wednesday. And it will be really exciting time for Luke Laux to get his first true recruiting cycle signed, and one of the best classes in the country.
It was the 2015 class, by the way. And I hate to steal this from you and Ira, but listen to this class. Dwayne Bacon, 5-star prospect. Malik Beasley, 5-star prospect. Then you have Terrence Mann and Chris Kamaji. And you want to know who's still in the league? Terrence Mann, baby.
Yeah,
how about insane. That?
That's an insane class. Yeah, wow. See, stars don't always tell the truth from what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, but I mean, Malik and Dwayne, they left way too early. I mean, it's hard not to go pro the basketball one and done.
Well, in
especially
a
back then, was extremely strong.
non-NIL era. Yeah.
Yeah. Very hard to keep them all. And, they were talented. They were really, really talented prospects. That makes us done for this edition of the Warpath. We'll be back next Friday. Matt will not be in a Panthers t-shirt. That will be returned. Oh God, must have been horrible for you. Hold on, I'm gonna take a screenshot of this for permanent advertising of the show. Thank you all so much for watching the Warpath. My name's Nick Carlisle, staff writer for theoutfield.com. That is Warchant.com's Matt Lasser, and we'll see you back here next Friday on the Warpath.